So we're going to make a texture chart. And the first thing you need is a regular piece of paper, and you're going to have to fold it up so you have 8 squares. So if you fold it over like this, and then over again, and then one last time, and then open it up, it's going to give you 8 sections. So I'm going to back this up a little bit so you can see those sections a little better. Okay, so you've got 8 sections. Now, in the first 4 sections, you're going to be collecting textures. And in the bottom 4 sections, you're going to be doing something else. So let's focus on the textures first. So you're going to collect 4 different textures. To do that, you need a crayon, and then you need to find some textures. So you're going to start out by taking your sheet, laying it on something, and rubbing it to create the texture. So I happen to have this thing here. I'm going to put it down, and I'm going to put my paper on it and use the side of my crayon and rub on there to get a texture. Darker color crayons work best. You don't have to fill the whole space with the texture. Okay, let's come in a little bit on that so you can see it better. All right, so there's my texture. And you're going to do that in the 4 spaces. If you want to number them, you can. Like that. Okay, here's one that's finished. I have 4 different textures. Okay, your next job is to create a drawing in the space below each texture that shows what that texture is. So you can think about it this way. You look at the texture and think, how do I create that in a drawing? It's a 3-dimensional texture. How do I represent that on a 2-dimensional page? So we've done an intermediate step here. We've created the texture on paper this way. Now we're going to think about, well, how do I translate that into a drawing? Since if you're doing a drawing on paper, you might not necessarily be able to take it and rub the texture onto the drawing. So we'll start with this first one right here. Okay? If you look at it, you can see there are these dark blocks and light spaces. So in thinking about how I create that texture, I need to go about it carefully. Sometimes you might be tempted to do this. But that wouldn't be an accurate representation of this texture because the light here is drawn dark here. So what we need to do is represent these boxes and the shading that's in them, and then leave these open. So here's what that would look like. And you can see that as you keep going, the boxes next to each other create negative space, which we've talked about. And that's the white of the page that you're seeing in the texture. Once you've done those, then you would add a little bit of shading. So we go in here like this. And that's where our value comes in. And then the darkness of these squares next to the light of the paper will create a 2-dimensional representation of what that texture looks like. And the rubbing is just an intermediate step that helps us to figure out how to draw it. So your job is to take each of your textures and recreate what the texture looks like in a pencil drawing below it.